Hello everybody, thanks for joining. Today I'm going to be making a kind of a short video, just kind of going through the settings I like to use in Quake Champions for utilizing Nvidia Reflex. So this is, if you don't already have the Nvidia control panel, you should be able to access it by right clicking on the desktop and it should be right there. If you can't find it there, you can always type in Nvidia control panel and open up the application from there. If you don't have either one of these, then you probably need to go to their website and download the latest driver for your graphics card, whatever it may be. And I'm not really sure how far back Reflex is going to go. I think it's 10 series and newer. It might even be as old as the 900 series, but if you do have something older like that, just search it up and find out if Reflex is available for you. So first off, you go to Quake Champions and you go to the settings over here. You're going to notice under game that there's third-party hardware here and Nvidia Reflex low latency technologies here, and I have it just enabled. Now there's a couple things you can do here. You can have it disabled, enabled, or enabled plus boost. And basically it says right here, additionally, GPU clock frequencies are kept high in CPU bound cases. This can reduce latency but will increase GPU power draw. So from what I understand, I just keep it enabled because what we're about to go through, I basically manually enable that already. Not to mention I manually overclock my graphics card through Afterburner. So this, I just leave it on enabled. But let's go ahead and go through a couple of things real quick just to make sure that you guys have this set up the right way. First off, in Quake, you want to have this enabled, and then you're going to want to save after everything you do. So enabled right here, and then for frame rate, just drag this to infinity because Reflex is kind of a dynamic frame cap in a way. So you'll notice that I have this set to 158 even though I have a 165 Hertz monitor. Reflex decided on its own that it's going to cap it at 158 for me. Now if I go to in-game, this is going to remain 158. There are a couple instances where it might go above, but it's I don't know, like when you go through portals and stuff like that, I'm not really sure why it does that, but during gameplay, it's going to keep it at a pretty steady 158. Granted, you have your graphics set up the way that you want, so you can obtain this all the time. Now, if I turned all this up to ultra, there's a good chance it could probably maintain 158, but when things get pretty crowded on the screen, a lot of stuff's going on, you might be seeing some drops, and that's acceptable if you want that. But if you don't want that, do something a little bit reasonable here. I like to go all medium except for lighting quality. I keep that on high, and then I turn off the gore detail. Now I just go to high dead bodies, keep anti-aliasing at TAA. You kind of do what you wish here, but remember, the whole purpose behind using Reflex, and especially in a game like this where most people are going to think it's ridiculous that I'm using Reflex or anything like that, and I agree 100%. If you want to be the most competitive that you can at this game, you don't want to use any of these technologies. You don't want to cap your frame, or maybe you do want to cap your frame, but you don't want to use G-Sync or V-Sync. So I'm going to get into how I set this up, but the reason why I do this is because I, like many of you out there, I'm sure, just can't stand tearing. Sometimes it even gives you a sick, like, I don't know, makes you feel sick, makes you feel weird. I really don't like tearing, especially if it's happening more or less across the entire screen, and if you can't manage to get it just to tear on the very, very top or the very, very bottom, then this video might be for you. But for me, Maybe it's just because the monitor that I have being 165 hertz and however that works out. But whenever I uncap my frame rate in Quake Champions, and let's say I cap it maybe at 165 to 166, just a couple frames over 165, it'll still tear like almost all the way across the screen. I can bring it up to 175, it'll still tear almost all the way across the screen. It's just, there's no way I can really stop it. I bet you if I were to go get a 240 hertz monitor or something more, that would probably alleviate that issue. But for right now, I have no issue using Reflex whatsoever. The latency is really low. It's almost indistinguishable. So let's get into this. Let me show you. So you right click on your desktop and you go to Nvidia Control Panel. First thing you're going to see here is this preview. Now this is going to be the very top over here. And what you're going to want to do is make sure that you have this clicked on the center one. Use the advanced 3D image settings. And you go down to manage 3D settings. Now this is where most of the stuff is going to happen right here. So going from the top down, image scaling I have off, ambient occlusion I have off, anisotropic filtering I have application controlled, anti-aliasing FXAA I have off, anti-aliasing gamma correction I have on. You can turn this off if you want. This doesn't really seem to make a difference to me, but going down a little bit more, anti-aliasing mode, app controlled, anti-aliasing settings. This is going to be grayed out unless you choose something up here. Anti-aliasing transparency off, background application max frame rate off, CUDA GPUs all, DSR factors off, DSR smoothness grayed out off, low latency mode. Now this is interesting here. When you click on low latency mode, there's going to be off, on, and ultra. You can put it on ultra and still use Reflex, or you can put it on and still use Reflex. I keep this on here primarily for games that don't have Reflex, because I still want ultra low latency. Now, if you have this on and a game has Reflex, Reflex is going to override this regardless. So just leave this on ultra. It's perfectly fine. Max frame rate off, monitor technology G-Sync compatible. This is kind of key here. You're going to need at least a G-Sync compatible monitor, or an actual licensed G-Sync monitor to be able to G-Sync it. But you could probably get away with a non-compatible G-Sync monitor. There may be issues. Your results are going to vary there. Next, multi-frame sampled AA or anti-aliasing. I keep that off. OpenGL rendering GPU auto select. Power management mode, prefer maximum performance. Now this is kind of where, if you put in, like in the game, where it said Reflex plus boost or enable plus boost, I think that's what it's doing, is it's just putting on maximum performance. So if you already have this clicked here, then just don't worry about it in the game. Just set it to enabled. Preferred refresh rate, I set mine to highest available. Shader cache size, leave that to driver default. Now these next four here, texture filtering, are all kind of linked to this one right here versus quality. So I just go down to this one right here and put that to high performance, hit apply, and then all these other corresponding ones are going to kind of change with it. Although you can tailor it to what you want specifically. You can put this to high performance and then turn this off, or clamp whatever you want here. But for the purposes of this video and Quake Champions, I put this to high performance, which results in on allow high performance on. Okay, next is going to be threaded optimization. I put that to auto. Triple buffering off, vertical sync on. Now this is key here. You actually need to have vertical sync on, either here in the control panel or in the game itself, if you actually want G-Sync to work properly. Now I know what you're thinking. Why would you want to use G-Sync in a competitive game with vertical sync enabled as well? Well, first off, you need vertical sync enabled for G-Sync to actually work. Second off, what we're doing is we are capping the frame rate using Reflex. So we are capping the frame rate a couple FPS below the refresh rate of the monitor, so that way it's not even allowing it to go into the vertical sync range. Now if we say, for instance, put on G-Sync and we're not using Reflex and I don't cap the frames using anything and just let the frames go, then yes, of course, that's where you're going to be experiencing that latency and the sluggishness from vertical sync, because anything past your refresh rate is going to be V-synced if this is on. Anything below your refresh rate will not be affected. As long as you keep it capped, I would say anywhere between 3 to 5 FPS below your refresh rate of your monitor, you will never hit this vertical sync, and it's not going to be an issue. So this needs to be on for G-Sync to work. Next, virtual reality pre-rendered frames 1, and VR variable rate super sampling off. Alright, now we're done with that list. Go up here. You can just go ahead and leave everything the way it is right here. It's fine. Go to change resolution. Now, whatever your primary monitor is, it should be over here. And then what you're going to want to do is, if you're on a PC and you're using a monitor, it should say PC and then it'll come up as native. Now, if you're using like a television or something on your PC, that's fine too. It will show up here, and you can choose that. Just make sure that you have the correct cable or an HDMI cable that has enough bandwidth to handle whatever it is that you're pushing through it. If you have a TV that can go up to 120 hertz, just make sure you've got the right cable plugged in there. And in here you can make all kinds of custom resolutions and stuff. That's kind of out of the scope of this video, but so when you pick native up here, it's going to give you a list, okay? And a lot of times when you get a brand new monitor, if you're not familiar with this, let's say you buy a 165 hertz monitor, you plug it in, and when you first come here, like for me, it said 144 hertz. So you got to make sure that you find your native, and then you actually find the refresh rate that it says on the box, the advertised refresh rate, and you apply it, and everything should be good. And now you come down here. This is going to be clicked to default color settings when you see it, but I would recommend clicking use Nvidia color settings, the highest that you can here, 32-bit. The output color depth, I would also go with the highest that you can, whatever your monitor supports. Mine supports 6, 8, and 10, so I go with 10. You can choose one of the YCBs here, but RGB is what I typically go with. And for the output dynamic range, I always choose full. Hit apply. Okay, then next we're going to go to color settings. Now, you can change your color settings for each monitor. So let's say you have two monitors that are not the same, like me. What you can kind of do, if you have a let's say a wallpaper that spans both of the monitors, and it's a pretty decent color, or a group of colors, whatever, and you want to make them the same, you can kind of do that here. You just go down to hue, digital vibrance, gamma, contrast, brightness, and then you can actually change the channels of the colors here. You can kind of mess with them to kind of get them as equal as possible if that's what you're into. But for my main monitor, the only thing I really mess with here, because I set all my colors on my monitor, if I can, with the actual settings built into the monitor. So a little knob on the back, whatever you got. If you got an El Cheapo monitor like this guy over here, do the best you can with the settings within it, and then you can kind of manipulate the other stuff through Nvidia if you need to. But for my main monitor here, I just set everything as best as I can in the monitor settings and calibrate it as close as I can. And then I come down here and I bring digital vibrance up to about 65. You can see like what this does here. it's just basically the color. So depending on what game, I like to keep it between 62 and 65. But your monitor may be different. In fact, I bet it will be. So just see whatever your eyes like and adjust accordingly. Next, rotate display. This is you know, if you have a second monitor, you want to put it in portrait or whatever, flip your mode, whatever. Pretty self-explanatory. HDCP mode just, you know, doesn't really pertain to this so much. This one doesn't really either. Desktop size and position. This is you know, you can manipulate stuff pretty heavily in here, I guess you could say. Like you can also change current resolutions from this menu here. In the previous menu here, where it says change resolution, if you hit customize, you can actually click on this here, enable resolutions not exposed by the display, and then create custom resolution. And if you want to do that, just as an example, click on that and create custom resolution, and right here where it says 165 Hertz. Now, I know for a fact that mine is not going to overclock any higher than 165 because this is already technically a 144 Hertz monitor that's overclocked from the factory, and that's why it can't go any further. But let's say you have a monitor, might be 120, might be 144, whatever the case may be, and if you want to overclock it, if you want to get a couple more hertz out of it, then in some cases you might be able to overclock quite a bit, maybe get an extra 25 hertz or something. But I would recommend, if you're going to go that route, what you want to do is you want to go one at a time and just click, you know, 166 and then test, and the screen's going to go black for a second. I'm not going to do it right now, but it'll come back, and if it comes back, then it'll probably say it was successful, and you can save that. So but what you do is you keep going one up at a time, just one more until finally the test does not, you know, succeed, and it'll tell you that it failed, and it'll put it back to where it just was before. And that's how you overclock your monitor if you wanted to do that. So going back down, we were at setup G-Sync. We already did desktop size and position. You know, this is pretty customizable stuff. The second to the last on the display list here is going to be setting up G-Sync. So if you have a G-Sync panel, if you have a G-Sync compatible panel, then this is probably going to show up right here. And if this is not checked, you're going to need to check this for this to all work. So you enable G-Sync on this panel, enable full screen mode. You can hit windowed and full screen if you want, but I play most of my games in full screen. And then you're going to choose the actual monitor that you're doing this on. And notice how this one has the Nvidia logo on it and this one doesn't. That's kind of an easy way to tell if it's G-Sync compatible or not. Now, last but not least on this page, display specific settings and enable settings for this selected display model. And I check this just to, I'm not really exactly sure what this does, but I've always had this checked from the day I got this monitor, and I don't know. I really don't know what this does, so if anybody does know, please let me know in the comments below. Set up multiple displays. This is if you have multiple displays and, you know, wherever they are, you know, whether your second one's on the right or the left of you, or if it's bigger or smaller on the top, you know, vertical, you know, what have you. And now we're going to go down to video settings. This is pretty simple here. The only one you're really going to mess with is just video color settings. You're going to want to go down, click with Nvidia settings. So you're using the Nvidia settings. You can change color and gamma in here, just like you kind of could before, up here with change resolution. But what you really want to mess with here is just the advanced. Go down to dynamic range, make sure this is clicked to full, and then hit apply down here. And then the last one on here is adjust video image settings. I don't mess with any of this stuff here. If you want to, go for it. I really don't know what that is or this, or this. It might help with watching movies, I'd imagine. These settings are very similar to the ones that you'd find on perhaps a television. So there you go. Just gonna go through and show you. Now that everything is set up through the control panel and everything's saved, just to double check here, when you open up Quake, you're going to make sure that this is enabled. You're going to make sure that your frame rate is all the way maxed out. Your menu frame rate, you can't max that out, so I just put that to the same as whatever Reflex is decided here. So I imagine if you have a 144 hertz monitor and you turn on Reflex, it's probably going to dynamically cap it at maybe 141, I'm guessing, maybe 142, 140, whatever it may be. I'd set your menu frame rate limit to that, and then you save, and there you go. That's basically it. I just wanted to make a quick video on how to set up Reflex in Quake Champions. Now this methodology could probably be used with other games as well. What I do know for sure is that in order for Reflex to work, the game has to have it. Has to have it built in, because Reflex is not a technology it's going to be built into the control panel for every game. If you want the lowest latency for any game that you might have, then, like I said before, just go down to low latency mode here, turn this to ultra, and you'll pretty much be set for the lowest latency you can possibly get, you know, while playing any game with G-Sync turned on. Alright, I think that's gonna do it for this video, guys. Really appreciate you stopping by, checking this out. If you liked it, then, you know, leave a like or comment. You know, let me know what your thoughts are on any of this stuff. If you have anything set up that's differently set up than mine, let me know. Well, right on, guys. Have a good day.